What's up guys, Enkiri here. Today I want to talk about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and that's how to build power. Specifically, the biggest mistake that I see other people make when they're trying to develop their ability to be powerful. And here, I'm not talking about how to work your way towards becoming the president of a country or the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, but rather building power with the end goal of developing a more explosive first step, or an insane vertical jump, or just straight up the ability to run through walls. With the NFL Combine just wrapping up recently, we've all witnessed some world-class displays of power from these elite athletes these last few weeks. And those feats are really the type of thing that absolutely just leave you in awe. Personally, I've always been enamored by this fundamental component of athleticism. And so I've spent the better part of the last 10 years trying to maximize it and improve it to the absolute best of my genetic ability. And over that time, not only have I learned a thing or two, but I've also seen a lot of pretty stupid shit as well. So today I want to go into a little bit of detail about the biggest mistake that I consistently see people make when they're trying to build power in the weight room. But first, we need just a tiny bit of background information so that we can understand why all of this even matters in the first place. So let's take a look at this sweet graphic that I made to kick things off. This is what's known as the strength-speed continuum. You'll notice that on one end exists the concept of pure speed, and on the other end exists the concept of pure strength, with what would be innumerable varying degrees existing in between those 2 points, and the concept of power existing smack dab in the middle as a perfect marriage between the two. Now, as power enthusiasts, the reason we need to understand this continuum and what it represents and how that ties into people screwing up their power training is twofold. One, this continuum provides us with really all the information we need to understand how to develop power. It shows us that there are several key physical qualities, all somewhat blurred together, that ultimately dictate power output. And that all of those qualities must be trained at some point or another to maximize power development. If power exists smack dab in the middle of strength and speed, then obviously if we want to maximize power, we have to train for strength, we have to train for speed, and we have to train for every derivation that exists in between the two as well, which, as this continuum tells us, are numerous. And two is the concept of trainability. As you move to the right of the continuum, more towards strength and less towards speed, the physical qualities become more and more trainable. They become less dependent on genetics and more responsive to the training you do. As such, the exercises develop a lot more quickly. This is why, as a beginner, you can add 100 pounds to your squat in a linear fashion over the course of just a few months. It is purely a strength-based movement. There is no time restriction on the application of force when it comes to squatting a heavy barbell. Now, as you move more and more towards the left side of the continuum, more towards speed and less towards strength, the physical qualities become less and less trainable. They become more dependent on genetic predispositions, and as such, they become less responsive to the training you do, even if the training itself is 100% optimal. Now, does that mean you can't improve your ability to produce power? Hardly. In fact, in my experience, you can improve it a whole shitload. I'm living proof of that. I've made tremendous increases in my running and jumping abilities, as well as my just general ability to produce power over the years. But the kicker is, and this kind of leads me to my entire point, it takes a hell of a lot of time. You need to be patient because these exercises respond much more slowly. The adaptations are still occurring, they just take a lot longer. And as such, your training needs to be adjusted according to that. And here's where the major mistake comes into play. People treat their power development exercises the same way they treat their strength development exercises. And that's to say, they expect the rate of progression to be the same. And so they end up increasing the loads on their power development exercises far too quickly. And the big problem with that is, since these speed adaptations come on so slowly, If you start increasing the load too quickly, then your weight progression will, in very short order, have outpaced any speed adaptations your body would have made. And all of a sudden, you'll unwittingly find yourself outside of the realms of speed, strength, and power, and instead find yourself training in the realms of strength, speed, or even just strength, which will not only likely create redundancies in your training, but it'll also mean that you're no longer covering all of your bases across the continuum, and as such, your gains in power will be very subpar. So it's incredibly important to understand the differences between speed and strength and how the body responds when you attempt to train those different qualities. A squat, which is pure strength, is more trainable than a power clean, which is strength speed. And a power clean is more trainable than a jump squat, which, depending on the load used, is a pure power exercise. The less trainable a physical attribute is, and thus as well the exercises that proxy for that attribute, the slower you should increase the weights that you use on them. So when you decide to embark on a bout of power development training, the most important thing to remember is to be patient. You see all these NFL athletes with amazing running and jumping abilities producing obscene amounts of power. But what you have to realize is that these athletes built those capacities over years and years of proper training compounded onto one another. Not a single training cycle where they decided to focus on power development for a few weeks. That's simply not how it works. I don't care what the latest fad vertical jump manual tells you. And in my opinion, this training distinction requires a shift in mindset from focusing on the external to focusing on the internal. As lifters, we constantly want to see the weight on the bar go up because this is one of the main ways that we gauge progress. But you can't fall into this same trap when you decide to start developing power. Instead, the focus needs to shift more onto quality and, frankly, aggressiveness. There is no power development without aggressive intent. Every single effort needs to be 100% maximal. If you aren't moving at the top speed that you can be moving with whatever given load you're using that day, then you aren't going to increase your power and explosiveness. It's that simple. So rather than worrying about the external variable, the weight on the bar, you need to shift your focus onto the internal, which is effort, aggressiveness, and intent. For example, you would be better off never increasing the weight on a jump squat and just focusing on putting 100% effort into every single jump and trying to jump higher and higher with the same weight every single week, rather than increasing the load too quickly and moving yourself out of the desired training zone before any real adaptations have even taken place. Now, the sweet spot comes into play when you can figure out how much weight to actually add to the exercise and how often to add it in order to keep you right smack dab in the middle of the desired training zone so that you can continually produce and develop maximal power with every single training session, even as your body continues to adapt to the loads that you're using. In my opinion, that's a blending of both art and science, and that's really what separates the wheat from the chaff. But diving into that today is kind of beyond the scope of this video. Anyway, I think that pretty much covers it, and that's really the biggest mistake I see people consistently making who want to become more powerful and explosive. They want that ability and they want it right now, and so they try to rush the process. But all that really does is screw up the training and shortchange the long-term results. And before we finish up, I've also got a couple honorable mentions I figured I'd throw in here for you guys real quick as well. And these two kind of go hand in hand and are probably mostly a result of CrossFit style training and all the ignorance that's come along with that in recent years. But they are, one, trying to do too many reps per set of explosive style exercises, and two, not resting long enough between bouts when training for power. Like I mentioned earlier, unless you're going balls to the wall with 100% aggressive and maximal efforts, you're not going to make substantial improvements in power. Quality is really the name of the game here, and gassing yourself by doing 30 cleans in a row or trying to do 500 jumps onto a rinky-ass little box in 3 minutes is not true power training. And the results that you get from it will be proof of that. High quality, maximal efforts, complete nervous system stimulation, long rest periods, just a handful of reps per set, and minimal accrual of fatigue are really the nature of truly training for power. There's a time and a place for conditioning and all that other shit, obviously, I do it myself. But if you really want to become an explosive powerhouse beast with the speed of a Ferrari and the power of a Mack truck, then you'll follow these guidelines and you'll be patient. And remember that it's a long game that you're playing. But if you're diligent with it, you'll get where you want to be. As always, you just have to be consistent and put in the work. Anyway, that's all I got for now, guys. Please be sure to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And definitely leave me some love in the comments down below. Also, if you're interested in online coaching, be sure to shoot me an email at enkiri.elite@gmail.com and I'd be happy to pass some more information your way. Keep training hard, and I will catch you guys next time.